Hiya, I'm Marcus from All Ages Airsoft, and today we've got not really a broken gun, but a gun that has been worked on by another builder, quite a good one, and the customer has had nothing but trouble with this gun. It's a Marui G36 NGRS. Been fully worked on, everything's been done internally. But the gun has never ever worked properly. It has a nasty habit of stopping and giving problems. So I know it's got a Leviathan fitted, and I know the code for the Leviathan. So we're gonna first of all start with putting the battery on and checking the specs on the system. So I'm just gonna connect it. Gonna go into my Leviathan setting. There it is. Right. Okay, so let's have a quick check to see if there's anything. Electronic fuse is okay, so it certainly hasn't lost anything on here. So right, now I will say that when the gun first came in, the customer's driven quite a long way, a good 2.5 hours to come down here and see me. And the first thing I did was connect it originally on the app, and when you pulled the trigger it would say high MOFSET current. So I checked the diagnostic system and it said check electronic fuse, and for some unknown reason this was set on 3 amps. So I believe what has happened is, for some unknown reason, whoever built it may not have even noticed they'd done it. They'd set it on 3 amps fuse. Well, if you think the normal Marui gun comes with a 20 amp fuse, and that's before you even consider putting internal parts in it. So I think it was set at 3 amps, and that was what was causing the vast majority of the trouble. The customer has requested that I strip the gun, check it, check all the shimming, just make sure internally it's okay. I don't personally think I'm going to find any issues in here, but we're going to strip the gun and find out. So let's crack on. So I'm going to disconnect the battery and we will start. The toolkit. I'll use a lot of gun power tools now because I think they're made extremely well. Right. Okay. This is just the basic stripping procedure. I know this is an NGRS, but it is going to be essentially the same as a normal G36. The only difference with this one is because of the way Marui wires it in, I'm actually gonna pull the front trunnion out. It's going to make my life a lot easier in the long run. Okay, for a second. Okay, so there is the trunnion spring. They changed the hop unit from a normal Marui G36 style hop unit. So we will have a look at that later on. Right, now if they have, in actual fact, screws in here. Right, let's have a look. Now, in theory, that should come out. I'll kill it for a minute. Okay, now through the magic of YouTube, we have now got the gearbox assembly out of the gun. We've almost gone back in time, really. This is very, very close to the very early Marui MP5s, which you had to strip everything to get to. So this is the basics of the NGRS version 3 G36 gearbox. Very complicated piece of equipment. So, as you can see, all the wiring for the Leviathan. I'm just checking to see if there are any compromised cables. They don't look like there are. That would possibly cause a short or a problem. There don't appear to be. That doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't, but they don't appear to be at this stage. So, we're just going to continue. I do like the G36 system in general because it means, like AKs, I can strip the gun without having to put the entire gun back together. Right, so there we go. Right, that's the grip assembly. Right, so now, right, I'm automatically seeing problems. Yep, we've got a compromised cable just here. Quite a mangled cable. That's not a good sign. The reason that has happened is the wire was here. Now, if I point this out, just here we have a groove. That is actually a cable run. And the reason why is that cable is slightly too short, but that needed to go in this run, so we're going to have to address that carefully. That could well have been causing a problem. Right, I don't like seeing tape. That's always a bad sign. You don't use tape on an airsoft gun unless Well, there is no unless. If you're having to use tape on an airsoft gun, same problem here. This cable is too short, and by the looks of it, that looks like I've got another compromised cable. Yep, definitely compromised cable. Right, so that could well have been causing a problem. Right. I'm hoping those are just normal push connectors. Just get this tape off. Oh, it's got a brushless motor, and that's a good motor. That's an expensive motor. But not impressed so far. Right. There we go. As you can see now, that is it's physically broken in to the wire, to the wire underneath. So that's a very bad sign. That's not good. There we go. Right. And exactly the same problem here. Right, okay. So we're going to get the motor out of the way just to make life a little bit easier now. Right. Yeah. No major problems there. If anybody wants to know why I smell the motor, very, very simply, we smell the motor because if you've got a burnt out motor, you will smell it. Without question, you will smell it. Right, I'm going to remove the screw here, and hopefully that's going to allow me to take the recoil system off, which would make my life a lot easier at this stage. There we go. Right, we don't need to muck about with that at all. Okay. Not overly impressed with how some of this is wired in. That cable, it hasn't compromised it, but it isn't far off of being compromised, which isn't a good sign. I would have been very, very tempted to remove this part if this was my own gun. We might look at doing that to give ourselves just a little bit of extra wiring, because although that seems like a great idea, holding the wire in place, I like the idea of it. It's bending the wires, and that one's in exactly the same state. It's bending the wires and causing them to chafe, and I think that is 3/4 of our problem here. Right, let's remove this. I'm hoping, yeah, just like the old SCAR system. I'm going to leave all of this in order just so I can always come back to it. I wasn't expecting to find wires like that. It hasn't instilled me with hope of what I'm going to find inside now. don't like this being so long either. There's no need for it to be that long. I might well cut this piece of heat shrink off, shorten this wire and just lock it into there, because excess wiring, if you can avoid doing it, is always worth doing. Make life easier for yourself. If you can avoid getting wires trapped, it will solve an issue. Okay, right, so we've got down to here. We've already discussed, we've got compromised wires here and on this side, there. Now, as I go looking further, that's soldered. Now, if you look very carefully here, that looks to me to be filed. Now, I think we've got somebody who's tried soldering it, and my guess is the inside of that, I pull that back, I think the inside of that was touching. Now, if it was me, and this is the difference between gunsmiths and gun techs, I wouldn't have touched that. I want that solder, a nice solder joint. I'm going to have to check that now. I would be more tempted to use a Dremel and just remove a very small amount of material off of there. This is thick enough to be able to do that. Just a small amount of material off of there would have solved that problem. Right. I'm going to remove the selector plate. Sticker looks a little bit mangled, nothing major. A little bit of grease on it, nothing too substantial there. Right, okay. I'm going to hang fire worrying too much at this stage. What I want to now do is, there we are, G10. Marui still runs T10s. And we'll get inside it and have a look. Right. Right, now the fun begins. See, this won't help. If you look in here, you can just see two little indentations. They're there to hold the wire in place. But okay. Right, if you see these two little sharp indentations there, they're there to hold the wire in place. Brilliant. Now, this is a Marui. So the wiring was perfect out of the box. The only reason he's replaced the wiring is because he's gone for a Leviathan. Obviously, Leviathan wires are a little bit short. That is causing a problem. So when we come to reassemble, I'm going to look to see if we can either modify that or better yet, leave it out entirely. But I won't know until we get to that stage. So we are getting very, very close to, there we go, take that off, to getting inside the gearbox. So I'm going to hold that in there. Use something a little bit different. Right, there we are. Right. Come on, out you come. There we go. Right. Very, very greasy, very oily. Gears look alright. Anti-reversal latch is fine. Interesting. Right, nozzle's alright. Although I suspect that is a standard nozzle. Odd wear on... Oh, I see what he's done. He's attacked that tooth to help with angle of alignment with the gears with a Dremel or a file, and he's just nicked the tooth, the other tooth on the piston. Right, very good compression, very happy with that. Right, okay. Right, now it's going to be a case of, I'm going to call the customer and form a plan of action. We will see you in part 2. Hiya, I'm Marcus from All Ages Airsoft, and today we've got part 3 of the Marui G36 NGRS saga. Spoken to the customer, he's happy with what the plan of action was, which is a complete brand new wiring loom, which I've built, which we have done here. All brand new 16 gauge wire, silicone wire, good quality. As you can see, I've shortened the wiring that we didn't need. And there, we had a load of signal wire here that just, why it was that length, I don't know. We've had to do a couple of little modifications to get everything to work. I've used the correct motor terminals and set them up this way to make life easier. And we've had to Dremel out the wiring runs slightly, so the wiring will now fit in there, and we've done that on both sides. And to belt and brace it, what I've also done is this connection I've done in a right angle, and we've smeared some special insulating liquid on it, which goes hard, which will stop that giving us any problems. So we will now just make sure that this gun is operational. So what we're now going to do, gun works fine. I've also serviced the gun. There was some shimming issues, so we completely re-shimmed it. Absolutely nothing wrong whatsoever with the compression, had gorgeous compression. From what the customers told me, the gun was working. When it was working, it shot like a laser and went really well. The issue was the gun was so unreliable. Well, hopefully we've got around that problem now, because we put all brand new wiring, so it won't be touching anything it shouldn't be touching internally. So what we're going to do is start. So remember, there's the recoil assembly. These are like a Rubik's Cube with the amount of stuff we've got to fit. I like to test things as often as possible to make sure that there isn't an issue somewhere down the line. Okay. This is where the fun begins, keeping the wiring where we actually need it. Sometimes you almost need 3 hands to do these guns. And the other thing you've got to watch out for is make sure everything matches and locks in. Good. Okay, now we need, in here there will be a pin, there it is. There we go. Right, that's the basics. Alright, had that round the wrong way. I think I have. There we are. You have to make sure you get everything round the right way on these. Find the correct screw in our little box of screws. Right. Set that on there. There we go. Good. Right. Right. And of course, being a Marui, it is a complete and utter ball ache to reassemble. There we go. Right. Right. assembly. Now, you have to pay a bit more attention to the wiring at this stage. Because the wiring is meant to sit in there. You've also got to make sure you get the recoil system sitting where it should be, which is in there. And for those of you who want a very quick history lesson, the real G36, a 4 history lesson for those of you who are interested. And if you're not interested, tough, you're getting it anyway. G36 is based on the short stroke gas piston system. So you've got two gas piston systems, long and short stroke. Long stroke would be, say, an AK-47, where the piston is directly attached to the bolt, and when gas is tapped from the barrel, the bullet will pass down the barrel, and you've got high pressure gas behind it. Some is diverted up into a chamber, and that pushes very fast the piston assembly backwards. If your piston is directly attached or permanently attached to your bolt assembly, that's long stroke. A guy called Jim Sullivan, back in the 70s, developed the short stroke gas piston system that the G36, the AR-18, the L-85 and a number of other guns are based on. So instead of having a massively long piston, you've got actually a little short piston, like that. This little silver thing is the piston. So on the real gun, that would come back like that. Clout, this would be not a piston, an operating rod. Clouts that really hard, that wallops the bolt back and then returns that back into the fired position. That's why that is like that. The classic short stroke gas piston assembly. Just a little bit of useless history. But we like useless history here. I like educating people. And if anybody asks, well, how come the SAATA A1 and A2 were so bloody unreliable if the short stroke gas piston assembly is so reliable? Quite simply, they took an AR-18, which is initially the Jim Sullivan's rifle, and fucked it up royally. Unfortunately, Enfield, who initially designed the gun, did not have that much experience with that type of system, and they cocked it up on. Unfortunately, that's the only way to say it. The actual system itself is very, very reliable, and if you look, it was H&K who had to fix it. So there is your 2-minute history lesson for the day. Right, okay. Okay. Make sure all the wiring is neatly out of the way. Okay. Stock pin. Taking careful note of where the Allen key is. It is at the bottom. So you've got a nice little groove just here, and you can see it's marred right in the centre there. That means that is where the Allen key sits. So right, that is the basic gun back together. Now it is this little chappie's turn. Which is as fiddly as hell. There we go. Right. Last 3 screws. I'm hoping that we won't have any issues with this now, but what I will certainly be doing on the range probably tomorrow morning now is putting a good 5,000 to 10,000 rounds downrange through this gun. The customer has specifically requested I do this. I wouldn't normally do it, but he wants me to put that amount of ammunition through the gun just to make sure that there are no problems, which I personally don't have an issue with. I think it's a bloody good idea in the particular case of this gun. There we go. Right, gun is now back together. Now let's see if we have any issues. Right, now I'm going to quickly go into my Leviathan app. Just to make sure nothing has suddenly changed. Right, there's nothing I need to be worried about there. Safe, semi, auto. Yep, that's fine. Good, nothing there. Right, okay, that gun is done. Tomorrow we're going to do quite a bit of range testing. Thanks for watching.